O2 Inside Line.
This Rose.
Episode 4.
We're in Verona and it's hot.
Let's go.
There's a few options you've got if you want to use the environmental conditions to supplement your training, like altitude, which is popular. We prefer the heat and humidity because of an array of physiological adaptations you can get from using the heat, and also the minimal impact it has when you return home to resume training. And it's got a really good amount of transfer with regards to performing even in temperate or non-temperate climates.
Give yourself a bit of depth, even slower, then put the pace in it.
We try to put the lads under a lot of pressure tactically with regards to the decision-making process and learning. Technical pressure as well, and the oppressive heat is a distraction. It's hard not to be consumed with how you're feeling physically in the heat. It's hard not to be very aware that your head's pumping with blood, you're trying to cool down in the moment, but you also got decisions to make on the field, which means when you take those pressures away, it's just that degree a little bit easier, you feel a little bit more prepared. We profiled the individuals before the camp with regards to how they dealt with the heat, with regards to their rates of sweat loss, how they control their core body temperature, and what the composition is of their sweat with regards to how much salt's lost. Each player has a bespoke routine in place for what you might call pre-cooling or pre-acclimation prior to training. That might entail pre-cooling, so bringing down their core temperature before we train, things like using cold water or cooling packs, paracetamol to bring down core temperature. Some players might be using a fluid strategy where they're loading on electrolytes and fluids prior to training, and depending on their profile suggests is their biggest challenge in the heat. So that's something that's performed extensively before we train and afterwards, again, to make sure that the next training session has not been affected.
Steve said to us early on in the week that it's a new stress, and it's a stress that's going to challenge you physically and mentally. I'd say the most challenging fact is probably the kick chase side of it. In this heat, it does get to you, mentally and physically, and having to repeat that speed stuff, lactic acid building up.
Being able to sprint, chase off the ball, get back, reload, go again. The first couple, it's okay, but once you're fatigued, you get yourself into this hole and you just have to keep going. I think when I'm chasing the balls, you just make sure you put 100% into everything.
You should probably do a post-match interview after this, see the difference in my t-shirt and shorts. But I'm excited.
Keep doing that! Your beach, great work!
Alad and Steve and TT, they've made it clear that that physical demand on us is needed to be able to put pressure on teams. So, we're in the best place possible to get better at it.
Our wingers, they've probably sprinted a long distance or tracked back or something which has required a big high intensity effort. So they need to get themselves back again as quickly as they can for the next time, which could be 10, 20 seconds. We don't have water breaks every stoppage. It's a challenge, that's why we're here, because when we take that away and go back to England and compete in France, that stressor won't be there, so they should feel like there's a rebound effect.
Bird, I need you.
Thank you, man.
Is he too old
able to wear a cap backwards? That is the question. It's a little chip, that's a little pitching wedge. Just a little pitching wedge, that was.
Just humble, man. Just humble. Humble.
Alright, let's go. Let's go. Here we are. Let's go right there.
On Wednesday, Joe and Henry wanted to do some work that just accelerated their recovery. Regeneration is a more of an active process where you're performing activities to help you recuperate for the next day. And they wanted to do that yesterday morning. So we performed a session of mobility, activation work, working on the joints of the body to help them recover and be in a position where we can use them again properly the next day. And that's what we want all players to get to be in control of what they're doing when they're not on the field.
Into the wall, see how far you can go down while breathing.
I think a lot of people don't appreciate how hard these lads work out of hours and the commitment to their craft and their bodies that they've got outside of the structured training sessions.
Physically, I think I'm the best shape I've ever been. I've worked hard in the summer to get myself into this position. My diet, my training, trying to do extra bits, it's like the consistency has just helped me get into the shape I am now. Before I was like happy to be here, whereas now I've become more hungry to get back in the squad. When you're in this bubble, you kind of get lost in it. And obviously missing out in the Six Nations, it made me a lot more hungry to get back in the squad and prove myself.
The first day that he came back into camp, in our Head Start Camp 1, Joe recorded the lowest skin fold measurement we've ever had for him on record. We were stoked about that. The lowest prior to that was 2018, in the autumn of 2018. He was in pretty good nick in the World Cup in 2019. But for him to do that, immensely helpful to him, because it means he didn't need to use those first couple of Head Start camps to get in shape. He was already in shape, which means we could just layer more specific training on without having to do too much general work to get him in shape to train properly, if that makes sense. He knows now what his optimal is, what he needs to be at to operate fully, and because of that, his speed times are as good as they've ever been, if not better. He's clocking up way more high-speed running kilometres, GPS metrics, than he's ever done before. And touch wood, as I speak now, all of those injury niggles that often are knocking on his door when we're putting him under physical pressure, they're at bay. So if that's not an endorsement for turning up in shape, then nothing is. So he's done a great job there.
When I've done all my prep, it gives me confidence. When it gives me confidence, it makes me play with a smile on my face, and that's when I'm at my best. When I'm enjoying my rugby, enjoying training, enjoy being on the pitch with my mates, and it goes back to believing in yourself, figuring out why you do it. Always think about that young kid Joe, you know, watching World Cups, watching England play, watching, you know, these superstars play, and I'm like, you know, hopefully that one day that can be me, and that's something I want to do. That's something I use as motivation. If I could speak to the young Joe now, I would say just keep believing in yourself. Nothing's impossible. And just back yourself the whole way.
Let's go. Good.
That's what I'm talking about. Joe's working on his ability to bump people. They're trying to chop him low or cut him from the waist because he's a big man. So he's trying to keep his feet when people are going low on him. And Henry, we're just trying to get him to be a bit more instinctive with his evasion, so he doesn't think too much. He just uses his natural abilities which are inside him, just reinforcing the positive way that they do things.
It's been a very good 4 weeks. It's actually my first pre-season. My first pre-season I ever had was I came in injured, and last year I was in Australia, and it's been a bit of a wake-up call. You know, a lot of running and a lot of stress on the body, and I think what they're balancing really well. Doing too much work and not enough rest. Steve's very much, we'll work very hard when we're on, but when we're not on and we're recovering, we have to do everything we can to make sure mentally and physically we actually switch off for a bit. Because then when you actually go back into the rugby, you're still, chomping at the bit for it and you actually want to get better. Currently in Verona at the moment. We've been blessed with the day off. I don't know, how do I flip the camera? Oh, I don't know how to flip the camera. We've been blessed with the day off by the coaches and currently visiting the centre of Verona. It's lovely. As you can see, Pearson there, refusing to be in the vlog, just walking away from me. He says we're friends, but I don't know, I'm not convinced. I think we're going to try and get some lunch, see what the sights are. It's unbelievably hot and I'm sweating in horrible places.
He's been with us for roughly a year and Henry's very intuitive. He's a bit of a student of the body in that he's open-minded to things, but he's actually very, very in sync with how he feels and what's good for him.
Decompressing your spine, getting tight lower back, so helps out.
He doesn't really hang on to something, any therapy or activation, recovery methods that aren't working for him. He moves on quite quick.
I get called quite a high-tone athlete, so I'm not very mobile, but there's a lot of power that comes with it, which is a blessing and a curse. Kind of when I had my hamstring rupture back in 2021, and I kind of learned a lot about being professional and looking after my body, and the best ability is availability at the end of the day. So someone like Johnny May's been a great example in terms of what he's done. He's a man, early 30s now, but he doesn't show like he's slowing down or anything. So I think it's amazing his longevity, especially as a speed athlete. And I've taken a lot of learnings from him in terms of the prep. He still does it every day. We often find each other in the same room, doing mobility, having chats in the morning, and likewise after sessions, keeping on top of things.
Henry's a nuclear missile. He's got some serious strength and power in that body. He's under 100 kilos, so you wouldn't say he's by any means the biggest man on the field, but his outputs are the biggest on the field. He's an extremely strong young man, very, very, very powerful. So he's got all of the tools you need to be as physically dominant as someone can be. If he layers on the rugby expertise and studentship to that, he can do anything.
I'm gifted by my parents, I've got pretty good genetics. The Arundells have quite big legs across the whole family. I don't know, when I was 16, I was probably squatting around 150 kilos, and then from there it's kind of developed gradually. I had an injury early this season, and as I was coming back, I managed to get back into that weightlifting kind of mode where I'm not playing, so I can actually put a bit of weight on the bar and develop more. So I got to about 220 kilos before, and that was kind of my best squat I've had. And now it's kind of just maintaining that, not necessarily trying to become a world's strongest man or anything.
England just looking for some sort of lift now before next week. And Stewart on to the new man. Arundell. Oh, good strength. And that's what he can do. Oh, what a start to your international career.
The English media is a big thing for creating a hero. After that first test, I played, 7 minutes, and it was, the debut I could have dreamed of, other than the win we could have got, but it was more just, after that, there was a lot of media stuff saying, Arundell should start the second and third tests, and to me it was kind of, I didn't deserve to start at that time. I had players above me that were regular players, and just because I had a good 7 minutes doesn't mean it equates to an 80-minute performance. The best way to learn is getting experience, but sometimes chucking the deep end isn't the greatest scenario for some players, and I think I've managed very well, despite the obvious demands of media and fans, that type of thing. But I've definitely learned a lot psychologically about the demands that are expected when the media are writing about stuff, and speaking to guys like Marcus has been very good. He's someone that's been through a lot of it, and it's understanding what information do you actually want to take and who do you actually really want to listen to and whose opinion actually matters.
That is a massive stake.
There's milestones you want to hit in your career, and I think especially being in this environment you're playing alongside guys that have achieved, you know, those milestones that I want to achieve. You know, that's going to a World Cup, playing in a World Cup for England, and you know, going on a Lions tour, playing in the Lions tour. And then, I mean, more on a personal note, it's if I know I've done everything possible to make sure I've been the best player I can be and feel comfortable doing it and not having to force a different way, that's where I know I kind of would have found happiness in, you know, not cheated the man in the grass.
Again, just learning how to use a boat in Italian, so it could be interesting, to be fair. Feel good, man. You know me, I love the water, so yeah, it's good vibes. About to jump in the boat, live life.
These types of trips are beneficial in many regards. One, you know, we're coming here for the training, but aside from that, you also want the week to be memorable and something that they can draw back on when we're under the pressure cooker in France. And Verona is beautiful. We'll put on some certain things, but a lot of those boys take control of that and make the trip what it is. It's a novel stimulus of an environment. It's not England, it's in Italy, where the culture's different, and it just adds variety to the training week. It's something that you want to be a memory when this is all over. Remember how hard you worked, how specifically you worked, with a smile, and make them feel like, yeah, we're bloody well prepared now. And you'd want this to be a memory even when they finish playing, and that's our aim.